I'm so confused by the uni cuts y'all have been talking about. Is it just a political hammer? That's more subtle. I'll come back to that in a second. So I was just reading Charmanov's comment there. The push for for-profit universities realistically has been here for a long time. It was one of the side effects of Tony Blair's government an agenda of getting. I think the goal was to get 2/3 of the population through university, and that led to an increase in formal student loans. The sheer amount of money in that economy increased, and therefore the amount that universities could charge. The cap keeps on changing and going up. Universities are being run as business, and at the moment, actually, we're about to see a whole host of academic staff go on strike from marking. I saw today a poll of Durham University students, my old university, where 68% of the students do not support this. Now that's unusual. Normally, students are very supportive of direct action. But in this instance, I think they're getting a bit fed up of inaction in the university, leading to interruption for their teaching. Obviously, they've had COVID. I think there have been 3, maybe 4 strikes over the past 2 years by academic staff. So academics are trying to push back against it. But it is absolutely rife for corruption. Chancellors at universities, so the people who run, technically, I suppose, the agenda for the university, the vision, they have been, for example, at Durham University. I'll use my uni as an example because I'm familiar with it, and with the political inferences of some of this stuff. One of the former chancellors, I think the previous one to this one, was actively pointing out how much money, for example, Harvard raises from its former students, and how, we should be doing, quote, we should be doing similar. The idea of offering people the ability to name buildings after themselves if they donate £500,000 or something, this kind of thing. And all of that is leading to a situation which, much like a corporation, the finances of the university can be manipulated to steer an agenda. So, for example, at places like Sheffield, the business agenda has become anti-archaeology. Also, there's a political element there as well, because archaeology and anthropology, this current government doesn't particularly like those things, like cultural inquisitiveness. So the business argument is made that archaeology, for example, is not profitable. In Sheffield's case, it's fairly clear that what they did was they looked at the books in a very particular way to prove that was the case. And so therefore, as I say, much like a corporation, universities are becoming less about profit and more about being able to service debt and service ongoing growth. For example, at Durham University at the moment, there's a conversation about whether or not Durham should continue to expand its student housing offer. There's a very real risk that in such a small city, and realistically it's a big town, Durham, in the northeast of England, just happens to have the Church of England's third most important possibly, cathedral in it. There's a very real risk that the city will lose its local character if they just keep on getting more students in, to get more money in, to get more. It becomes like a gang. You're feeding the need for growth as opposed to actually quality, and this is a trend across the country, particularly at the quote unquote more prestigious universities. because they very quickly argue to have the cap on student funding more or less, raised for special circumstances. Oxbridge were right at the top of arguing for that very early on. They're like, this isn't enough, we need more. So, and therefore, if you're just seeking to service debt and seeking to continue to grow, questions about the quality of education come about. Questions about, from a marketing standpoint, which courses are we going to support? What do the focus groups say? That kind of thing. It becomes a very cynical way of doing university. Feel free to post a link. Yeah, go ahead. Very cynical way of doing university, but also as well one that is easily, as you say, corrupted. Because when there's a moment, as there was last year, when was it creative arts and archaeology were on a list, if you might recall, to be defunded. I think it was the Council for Students. I forgot exactly what it's called now, but basically universities get money that helps them deliver practical elements of their teaching. So, for example, it helps them to afford lab-based teaching, this kind of thing. Well, in the case of archaeology, because archaeology was deemed not to be profitable, the then Education Secretary, Gavin Williamson, was going to cut funding, that element of funding, for universities across the board, which was basically the green light for places like Sheffield to enact what they've been wanting to do for a while, and that is shut down what they considered to be a non-profitable department, or rather a department that they described as being non-profitable based on the economic case that they decided to make in the way that they made it. So, so the irony is that the love of learning is being sucked out of universities as a reason for going to universities. It's much more about the labour market directly. So the government talks about strategic courses, archaeology not being a strategic priority. But that's also the perception of what the value of learning is. Is the value of learning simply to add to the labour market in order to have a simple input-output of finance, or should it be about, for example, generating the next batch of experts who we're going to need, for example, I don't know, help with massive civic engineering projects like digging archaeological sites ahead of an ambitious railway that's covering half of England, notably the wrong half, in my opinion, who needs another railway going into London. I went past. Okay, I'll go back there. I'll go all the way back here. So it's multifaceted. It is money. It is corruption. It is. It's also partly as well that lots of the management at universities tend to come directly from an academic background, so they're not actually good managers, and they've abandoned their academic pursuits, so they end up being very highly paid figureheads who are at the mercy of consultation, and an expensive consultation at that. So, for example, in Sheffield, there was someone who came to the opinion that she did not like, because she was a geography academic apparently. She did not like archaeology, didn't see the point of it, and therefore moved heaven and earth to make the case for shutting down that department ahead of actually the economic case being made. But then the economic case matched up with what she wanted to do. And that was her personal gripe based on her academic background, and playing with aspects of, the long-term growth of the university, if you want to call it that, or the on a long enough timeline, the viability of any institution, any organization, that she is not technically qualified to assess. And she never has actually provided the evidence for her assessment. And this is unfortunately happening across the board. Old professors former doctors, PhDs that is, or readers in their subject, lecturers, are entering management because the pay is great. The results are not as well. The results aren't subject to peer review. You don't have to write a paper and have your colleagues tear it apart before it makes it into a journal. And you get to go on. You get to have a lifestyle that's more like a business, a CEO of a big business, than that of an actual academic in a university. Lavish trips abroad to do investigation, for example, into how other institutions work and how you might increase the profitability of the university, etc., etc. So, and that, I suppose, you could also put under the tally of corruption, I would argue, if you're turning your back on the reason for learning and you're simply aggrandizing yourself, increasing your bank balance, and seeing university as something to be sold, constantly sold to fresh clients in some sort of meat grinder, then I think you've gone down the wrong path, personally.
I found your warriors. They're alive.
I don't think that was a rant. I think that was an extended explanation, I think.
Valley, Lara Croft. You know we cannot offer you much, but I hope this will aid you.
Maybe I should turn that into its own little video at some point. Infiltrator. What did I just pick up? Armagerm. Where's the campfire? It helps clarify. Oh, that's good. That's good. But presumably you might have seen on the Facebook page over the weekend. It started as a colleague said. This isn't Andy. Someone else said to me. It was kicking off. Andy described it as being ugly, and some other people are saying that. But the problem is this is the time of year when we're going to be hearing about this as well, because if you think about it, the teaching for the most part is done. Lots of universities are entering their exam period, and the assessment is that, well, so forgive the pun, the calculation is that you've now got 6 months or whatever, between 3 and 6 months, to make your changes as a fait accompli. There's no, you haven't announced this at the beginning of the academic year. Announce your changes, fulfill your obligations to students who've already paid for a course or for their part of in a department that's about to be shut down, and severely limit the amount of time that University College Union and other local interested bodies from university to university have to counter, just frankly everything from protesting through to formal, form filling, documentary evidence gathering and providing. You're shrinking that window as a manager, so your desired changes are more likely to go through. So, this is the time of year when we're going to hear about more, basically. We already are hearing about, I can't remember if we discussed this in Watching Brief, or we're going to be doing it possibly next week, some universities where arts courses have been actively told since last year to cease recruitment, which is obviously counter to the business model, but that's in order to set them up for this sort of smashing of the department, basically, of a department. And if it can happen to art and history, of course, we've already seen it happening to archaeology. I think it's something that archaeologists should be paying attention to. But I don't want to be bullying them, of course. I don't want to, risk asking our leaders to do something in a way that they might see as being bullying. So we need to be very careful, and to suggest that they might want to be supportive of, for example, history departments, Ooh, instincts. Survival instinct shows nearby relics, documents, monoliths, and strong boxes. Even through solid walls, crypt entrances are revealed on the map. Excellent. I think I needed that. I needed that. Let's take a look at the map. I think there's more there now. He says very high pitch. Also, after we finish the story, there's Baba Yaga. There's the DLC, which is this hallucinatory trip into this whole other valley, all the way. Where is it? There? No, that's where I am. It takes you off the map, basically, into this crazy place where we see a house walking on chicken legs. So we have to play that as well before we move on to the third game. I've seen this going on for the past year there, and since I'm in a doctorate program, but just interested in the labour market, I don't see the details in the rat race. It just seems unfortunate and antithetical to the idea of higher education. Just wasn't sure where the push was coming from to cull all these programs. And the answer is it's coming from multiple sources, but broadly speaking, it's coming from a zeitgeist. And a zeitgeist that's led by greed, by corruption, by self-aggrandizement, and by a broadly speaking populist utilitarian approach to education. Education is there to increase the nation's wealth, not necessarily to improve the nation's awareness, mental health, and well-being. Yeah. And yeah, I would say the two go hand in hand. Surely we all benefit from people being happier, being able to be more productive, having great ideas. You know, isn't that a free market ideal? That people get to have a fair shot at having a great idea, taking it to market, you know? Or indeed taking it to the market of ideas, or taking it to the... Anyway, now I am ranting. Because the thing is, you know, there's also lots of evidence that green spaces, historical spaces, etc., if you turn it into a calculation about money, bring an awful lot to the economy. Well, an awful lot to the economy, but that's not... First of all, it's not an argument that lots of archaeologists are very good at making. When they do make it, they tend to make it in the counter, cart before the horse kind of way. They tend to say, we're not stopping you from doing development. We're not the dour anti-progress types that you think we are, as opposed to making positive cases, and cases linked, for example, with environmental awareness and even activism, God forbid. Okay, rant over.